And if she's making the list for being a risk taker and a philanthropist, I also think Justin Baldoni could technically be considered one of the most influential people of 2025. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Morgan's Pop Talks, breaking down the latest in reality TV and pop culture. Of course, thanks for being here today with your girl. It's Slick Back Bun Day. She is slicked to heaven and back. My hair is slicked so tight that I gave myself a migraine. I feel like if it was any more slicked back, you'd be able to see my frontal lobe. But you know, that's what happens when you don't wash your hair in 6 days, and you just have to pick and choose your battles. Do you want to get in the shower and wash your hair and be miserable for however many minutes, or do you just want to slick your hair back, give yourself a migraine, and call it a day? I'd choose the latter. And that's where I am right now. Allergy journey. I don't know if you can tell, but I think it's getting a little better. My voice is like a few octaves lower than it normally is because I'm not talking like this. Still on the allergy shot journey. I missed it last week, unfortunately, but this will be my 5th week. So we're on the up and up. Things are looking good. I am allergic to my dog because it depends on what room I'm in. I was sitting next to him watching this week's episode of The Valley, which I can't wait to get into in our deep dive today. And I was like, oh, I can't even tell you the stuff that was coming out of my face because it would honestly probably disgust you. But I'm like, I got to get away from this dog. Came in my office. I'm fine. So send some T's and P's towards Harley's way. I mean, I'm still like in his face all day, every day, because how can you not be? He's still sleeping in my bed because like, I'm not going to punish myself over the fact that I have allergies. But what else is going on? We're going to LA this weekend. Going to be super exciting. David and I headed to LA for an event that I can't wait to share with you guys. It's going to be fun. Hopefully, I'm going to get to see some of our favorite reality TV stars. Although, if you're a Seriously listener, you know that the trip is already kind of off to a bad start because I'm only going for a couple of days. I'm leaving Sunday night. We'll be there Monday, Tuesday, and then we're flying home on Wednesday. And the event is Tuesday, and it's in like this estate, okay, in Beverly Hills. It's going to be like the fanciest place that I've ever been to in my life, surely. So that's going to take place all day. So I'm like, okay, cool. Monday we'll be in LA girly. We'll be skipping around West Hollywood, going to Tom Tom, Sir, something about her. I called it the Big Three. You know, that's the Big Three. They're all closed. Every single one of them closed on Mondays. And I was complaining about it, and some of you reached out to me very lovingly because you guys are my friends after all. And you're like, honey, everything in LA is closed on Mondays. I was like, why? Like, it's not like that here in Northeast Ohio. I mean, obviously, it's not like a buzzing city here in Cleveland. I mean, it is, but not like LA. You guys get it. But I'm just sitting here thinking, like, wouldn't it make sense to like stagger some of them? Because if I'm Lisa Vanderpump and I know that at the end of the day, these places have now technically become a tourist attraction for people like me who like Bravo, like Vanderpump Rules. Like if you're going to close on a day, have Sir be closed on Monday, have Tom Tom be closed on Tuesday so that your girl has an option. I have no options. I don't even know. I have no idea where I'm going to go. So if you have recommendations for me, slide it into the DMs. I said, I'm just going to be like, you know, because somebody in my position would be like taking selfies. Oh, you got a pump teeny. No, I'm just going to be standing outside of closed businesses. Honestly, it's like on brand. It's par for the course for me in my life. But anywho, let's get into this week's Pop 3. We have some controversial things to talk about today, all right? So buckle up like you're going on the Blue Origin because that's what we're talking about first. I just want to say this is a safe space, all right? We can have different opinions and you don't have to leave me a 1-star review because I feel like I have some hot takes today and I'm feeling bold. It's the slick back bun. It's like changing the nerve endings in my brain so I'm not scared to say things today. Let's get into it. The girlies went to space. and it caused quite a stir. So it was Lauren Sánchez, Katy Perry, Gayle King, Amanda Wynn, Aisha Bowe, and Carrie Ann Flynn. Big space flight. It was Blue Origin's first all-female crew. There's been a couple of layers of backlash to this little roller coaster ride above Earth and back. So Olivia Munn, she previously said, what's the point? Is it historic that you guys are going on a ride? I think it's a bit gluttonous. Billions of dollars, brought some good memes, I guess. Yes, okay, online commentators also, saying it's so much hype. It was 10 minutes long. There's been a lot of backlash because it's like, in this economy, who's going to space? So the girlies that were on the Blue Origin are defending their stance. People Magazine, Gayle King says, anybody that's criticizing it doesn't really understand what is happening here. She says, we can all speak to the response we're getting from young women, from young girls about what this represents. Lauren Sánchez adds, I would love to have them to see the thousands of employees that put their heart and soul into this. It's really eye-opening. So let's talk specifically about what the backlash has been. There's a couple different reasons. One, perceived superficial feminism, right? Was it a genuine advancement for women's representation, or was it a huge PR stunt? You have Katy Perry floating around up in space with a daisy, like just floating around, right? It's a bit of a double-edged sword, right? Because it's a little bit of both. I think there is some PR aspects to it, but I also think, there were two women on there who worked their whole career to get to this point. So I feel like if it would have been 5 names that no one has ever heard before, would it have gotten as much attention? Probably not. Whose fault is that? Is that the decision maker's fault, or is that our fault as a society? So Aisha Bowe, she was there as a former NASA aerospace engineer who worked on several projects, including the final space shuttle mission in 2011. She's the founder and CEO of STEMboard, which is an engineering company, and the creator of Lingo, an initiative aimed at providing technology education to students. She has an extensive background in aerospace engineering, and commitment to STEM education highlight her qualifications for spaceflight. Then you have Amanda Wynn, who interned at NASA in 2011 and 2013. She conducted research on exoplanets at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. I will never say these words again on this podcast. Like this type of stuff is like a 10. My type of stuff is like a 3. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, she says in 2021, she became a scientist astronaut candidate at the International Institute of Astronautical Sciences, focusing on women's health in space. She's also a civil rights advocate, having founded the nonprofit organization Rise. Her flight marked her as the first Vietnamese and Southeast Asian woman to travel to space. So you can't sit there and say that they're all not qualified. These two certainly have accolades that I think, are deserving of a seat. So it's also, people are like, why are you calling them astronauts? Like, they literally just went up and went down. I get it. I honestly think it's like a part of the marketing of this moment. There's environmental and economic concerns, association with Jeff Bezos and corporate ethics. How much does it really cost to do something like this? Because that's another thing. People are like, what a waste of money. You could have used the money for anything else. Well, according to whoa, you guys. The bun is too tight, I'm telling ya. Rudders, each Blue Origin flight may cost between $1 million and $3 million to execute. That's a lot of money. Like I said, people are saying, use that money elsewhere. We can't afford eggs. Why are you going on, a top thrill dragster that is going to outer space and back? I get it. But I also this is my hot take, I do kind of feel like it's a bit of selective outrage, especially coming from other celebrities. Because let's look at what else takes $1 to $3 million to execute. A single night at a major arena show. like a stop on the Eras Tour or Beyonce's Renaissance Tour, can cover $1 to $3 million per show due to stage setup, dancers, lights, and travel. Las Vegas residencies. Artists like Adele or Usher typically spend $1 to $2 million per show night on production alone. The Oscars, $40 million for the Oscars. Key segments like red carpet, musical performances, or after parties can cost $1 to $3 million each. The Met Gala. It costs about $3.5 million to host, but individual exhibition installations or theme performances can cost $1 to $2 million. So, for people like us, I feel like we can complain about celebrities all the live long day. But for someone like Olivia Munn, to call it gluttonous, and I believe Olivia Munn has been to the Oscars before, and not call that gluttonous is like a weird flex to me. And that's how I feel about that. Told you, hot take. Okay, let's move on. It Ends With Us crew member says Blake Lively took advantage of Justin Baldoni. Talia Spencer, a storyboard artist for the movie It Ends With Us, sat down with 60 Minutes Australia for an interview and says Lively took advantage of Justin Baldoni. She says Lively smelled Justin's kindness, mistook it for weakness, and tried to take advantage and take power. She added that it was very hard to believe Blake Lively's allegations against Baldoni, noting his intent to make a film portraying domestic violence and to empower women who were experiencing it. She says, in my opinion, I find it very hard to believe the allegations against him, and considering his mission statement about the film and him genuinely pitching that he was doing this film to help young women, I just find it hard to believe the allegations, to be honest. She says, I would say I felt more comfortable being around Justin than a lot of film directors in my experience. So my first thought, who is Talia Spencer? So when in doubt, stalk their LinkedIn. She was a senior concept designer at Wayfair Studios. She was a senior concept designer for a lot of big names, Apple, Marvel Studios, Sony. Looking at her bio, she created the original visual script for the film Wicked, designed Bad Boys, Spirited, Blue Beetle, The Matrix 4, and many, many more. She says, I'm a veteran of the film industry. So, potential character witness? That's what I first thought. We're getting ready to go to court. It doesn't look like this is going to get settled out of court anytime soon. So if you're going to go on 60 Minutes Australia and you're going to, say how you feel about your experience on this movie, I feel like if I'm Brian Friedman, I'm calling up, what was her name? Talia Spencer. I'm calling up Talia Spencer being like, hey, you want to be a character witness? Might as well. Everything's already out there. Meanwhile, headline number 3, Blake Lively has made Time Magazine's most influential people of 2025. Of course, she's not the only one. She's in the company of celebrities such as Joe Rogan, Demi Moore, Ed Sheeran, Snoop Dogg, Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Serena Williams, Nikki Glaser, and more. So, in a statement to Time, civil rights attorney Sherilyn Ifill said, this is who wrote the excerpt about Blake. I don't know the Blake Lively of the red carpet or the Met Gala. I never watched Gossip Girl. The Blake Lively I know is a philanthropist and a student of our country's most intraceable problems. She says her and her husband, Ryan Reynolds, reached out in 2019 to make a contribution to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. She says, I had been getting a few of these calls as our work fighting against voter suppression and police brutality was receiving national attention. She says, I'm always curious about the kind of research famous people do before they make that cold call to offer their support. The ones I have remained in relationship with are those who, like Blake, really did their homework. She admired immediately Blake Lively's curiosity and her sincere work to understand the conditions that shape this country. She referred to Blake as a serious person, a risk taker, adding, and she's committed to moving this country forward for her children and for mine. So, to me, it's just pretty transparent that part of this is because Blake Lively has been plastered over a million headlines within the past 6 months. I mean, even in this excerpt, they say this started in 2019. Okay, so then why wasn't she in the most influential list in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, or 2024? You know? And if she's making the list for being a risk taker and a philanthropist, I also think Justin Baldoni could technically be considered one of the most influential people of 2025. Obviously, the article mentions nothing about the current legal battle she's in. It only highlights her work as a philanthropist. She's a deeply caring person about issues in our country. Well, let's just look at Justin Baldoni's philanthropic endeavors. Last year, advocacy for veterans and mental health, domestic violence awareness, advocacy for survivors. And Blake Lively was under the Titans section of the most influential people. And at first I wrote this all out because I was like fuming and I was like, this just goes to show, I'm never one of those oh, the media is so awful. I'm never one of those types of people. But I'm like, this is just either one of two things happened. Either allegedly, this is a theory, okay? Either someone's making phone calls from behind the scenes saying, we got to help rehabilitate this image, or someone is piggybacking off of a controversy, potential rage baiting people into clicking on the article. Because like I said, if that's the reason, because of all this stuff she started doing, dating back to 2019, there's been 4 other years that she could have been involved in this most influential thing. And then I'm sitting there thinking, well, I don't even really know if people would want to be on this list, considering some of the other people that are on the list, So I don't know. Have your opinions about it, but that's mine. Like I said, I think they're just trying to capitalize off of moment, capitalize off of a name that's been plastered everywhere to get moments like this. People riled up, people talking about it. So controversial. I told you. Let's get into the deep dive. The Valley is back. Highly anticipated second season of The Valley. When you consider the hype that they've been able to accumulate in just one season is pretty wild. I mean, when you have people like Jax Taylor and Kristen and even Brittany Cartwright in the mix, their history precedes them. So it's not like they were starting at complete ground zero. But, I feel like it sometimes takes a while for these shows to take off. And The Valley is like one of the biggest shows on Bravo right now, one of the most talked about shows on Bravo. We know that a lot of stuff went down in this off season. Jax and Brittany are getting divorced. Jesse and Michelle are getting divorced. So there's a lot to uncover here. We also learned a couple months ago from Jax that he announced on Bravo's Hot Mic podcast that he was struggling with cocaine addiction and substance abuse, which I told you guys, because look, this season is going to be bad for Jax Taylor. Everything I've seen up until this point is I saw this snippet of him in the press talking about the second episode and how the second episode is going to be really, really bad. And then Zach commented and said, and the third, and so on. So overall, it's going to be a bad season for Jax Taylor. Remember when he went on this Bravo Hot Mic podcast, and one of the first things that he said in this interview was, sometimes being on reality TV, your whole story doesn't get told. And I need to come clean about this addiction that I've had for a long time. That immediately rang alarm bells to me. I'm like, okay, so he's not necessarily doing this because it was just very obvious to me that the reason he was doing it was because he knew he was going to have a really bad season on The Valley and he wanted to get in front of it and he wanted people to associate his behavior with a substance abuse problem to lighten the backlash. I don't know. But anyways, we learn about this fight between Jax and Brittany about this man named Julian. One of Jax's friends who was hooking up with Brittany while they were separated, they had an agreement. They both were allowed to see whoever they wanted to see, but Brittany texted Jax and said, I think we should work on our marriage. Jax was like, yes, come over. Shortly before that happened, Jax saw some text messages between Brittany and Julian, and he went crazy, right? So Brittany says he saw these text messages. He was irate. He flipped a table. It hit my knee. Jax was like, yes, I saw red. Thank God Cruz was in another room and he didn't see anything. I don't think he had to see it with his eyes to understand. I mean, when you're irate and you're flipping tables and your mother is probably reacting vocally, he's like, oh, it's giving, oh, I protected my son from this trauma because he didn't see it. He heard it. And it probably was still traumatic for a 3-year-old, okay? And then he's like, what guy wouldn't react like that? A lot of guys wouldn't flip a table onto their wives. Would anybody be mad? Sure. But like Jesse says in this moment, he cannot regulate his emotions. So he's like, we did say that we could hook up with other people, but a friend, isn't it like flashbacking to Raquel and Tom Schwartz and Katie Maloney being like, don't hook up with anybody else inside the friend circle. And I can't remember, but I can't remember if this was actually a thing, but I guarantee you if Jax was in the mix and with Tom Schwartz around that time, Jax Taylor would be the first person to say, who cares? You guys are separated. Katie's miserable. Tom, do whatever you want to do. Who cares? So I just think it's a little ironic that he's in this particular pickle with Brittany. So in this scene with Brittany and Janet, Brittany says, Jax says things like, I'm Jax Taylor. I can do what I want. And that right there is exactly why I cannot take anything that Jax Taylor says seriously, because he doesn't know how to be a humble human. He doesn't know how to admit when he's wrong without some type of ego in the back of his brain saying, yeah, but they'll get over it and you can still do whatever you want to do. He went on that Bravo Hot Mic podcast to get ahead of what is going to be a bad season for him. And now, do you see what he's selling on his Instagram? T-shirts that say, I am the talent. Mugs that say, in the mind of Jax Taylor. That's the last place I want to be. The very last place on earth that I want to be is in the mind of Jax Taylor. So, are you ashamed of your behavior and want to make changes? Or are you selling t-shirts that say, I am the talent? Because to me, the two don't go hand in hand. Okay, let's move on. Jesse and Michelle. Jesse and Michelle is the other couple that's going through a divorce. They were married last season, but there was always turmoil between them. Now they're getting divorced and they're dating other people. We do meet Michelle's boyfriend, Aaron, but we don't meet Jesse's girlfriend in this episode. Jesse's like, we fight about everything. Co-parenting is going very bad. And we see two really good examples of this at this white party that Brittany is throwing. And it's like anytime something is brought up that has to do with co-parenting, it's like they automatically both want to take the opposing stance of each other. Michelle says, Jesse just gives me the ick. The match is lighted at the white party. At first, when Michelle says, Isabella, who's their daughter, Isabella wants everything because you spoil her, Jesse, is basically what she says. And Aaron, the boyfriend, says, do you get her anything that she wants? And then Jesse in his confessional is so scary. He's like so scary. He's like leaned back and he's like, shut the up. And I'm like, this man, he's not like scary, like a brown bear is approaching your house. He's scary like he's gonna poison you in your sleep. You know, like that's the type of scary that he is. He's like, if I want to spoil my child, I will. Like, committing murder through his pupils through the confessional. It was like I was watching a scary movie. It was like I was watching, what's that movie that I watched like in the broad daylight when I was in college because I'm such a baby, I can't watch scary movies. I can't remember it, but it's the one where they're in the house in like this little cabin and people come up and they like torture them all night long. The Others, is that what it's called? I don't know. I don't know why I went on that tangent. It's the slick back bun. Anyways, Michelle then later says, I met with this lady who puts billionaires' babies in schools, and I think that she could do that for our baby. And Jesse's like, you talk to a woman who puts billionaires' babies in schools without me? And she's like, well, I'm going to move to Orange County. And Michelle's like, call the lawyer, call the judge. They'll figure it out. I'm like, they sound like they are having a miserable time. I call the lawyer. Call the judge. That's what you need to do. The next time that you're in an argument with anybody, just say, we'll call the judge. We'll let it play out in court. See what they say. Michelle says, when we ended our relationship, Jesse said to me, he will do anything to destroy my life. And then we get this confessional from him where the producer asks, did you just bring up that stuff about Orange County to get a rise out of her? And he says, yeah. Same thing, just piercing pupils. Yeah, 100%. Let the chaos begin. Whoa. It was giving that energy. Also scared of Jesse. Then we have Janet and Kristen, a little bit of a friendship fight going on here because Janet said on a podcast that Zach and Kristen didn't want her pregnancy to go to full term and that Kristen didn't support her pregnancy. Sidebar, do you notice how Kristen just like saunters into every scene? It's like she's almost like leaning back. She's like kind of Gumby-esque. And I don't say that like making fun of her at all. I just feel like she's just like fully one with herself. She's just like sauntering around. That's just the way that I like envision her. I really didn't mean that to be a mean comment. I'm having like a little bit of regret using that terminology. I just mean it because she's tall. You guys get what I'm saying. Anyways, she's just always like strutting around, but taking her time, strutting, but taking her time. Janet pulls Kristen aside at this white party and says, I want to make things right. I want to be friends. I'm sorry for what I said on the podcast. Then Kristen's like, okay, well, it's hard for me to believe that you're being genuine in this apology. Blah, 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 blah. Why are you roping me in with whatever Zach said? So Janet says, Brittany says to me that Zach said, I don't care if Janet miscarried. And Janet's like, that is a messed up thing to say. And I'm sorry that I roped you in with Zach's demonic behavior. And Kristen is like, that's my best friend. Why do you have to say it like that? It's gaslighting me. And Janet's like, I can't separate the two things. I'm sorry. Hot take. Janet has every right to be mad about that comment. And like, demonic is a nice way of putting it, in my opinion. Because why would you say something like that? Why would you say something like that? It's a weird thing to say. It's a weird thing to think. It's a weird thing to say. So if you said that, like, ew, don't like it. Then we have a little cameo from Tom Schwartz. Tom Schwartz is giving Jax Taylor life advice. And did you notice Jax Taylor says, hey, Tom, how's Tom? And he's like, it's going. Maybe if they were open on Mondays, it would be going a little bit better. I'd come in and order everything on the menu next week. But I can't. Anyways, Jax is still on about how another man infiltrated my marriage. No, it didn't. Your stupid life choices and your rage and your addiction infiltrated your marriage. The guy is a consequence of your decisions. You guys were separated. You agreed that was going to be the case. You no longer have any say over any person that Brittany comes into contact with, period. And then he's like, she flies off the handle at me all the time. It's hypocritical. She's hot and cold. Don't care. Truly don't care. And I don't know what goes on behind closed doors. Brittany may not be this sweet, innocent little baby angel. I'm sure she has moments where her heart is soft towards Jax, and I'm sure she has moments where she looks at him and like wants to gouge his eyes out, because any female would. Like he said, any man would react like that. Any female would have that different range of emotions when it comes to this guy putting you through this much trauma over 10 years. So read the room. Read the room. When Tom Schwartz is telling you you're headed towards rock bottom, you better listen. You better listen. And I don't like the whole thing online where people are like, well, Brittany knew who Jax was, and Brittany, like, I can't feel any sympathy for Brittany. Like, yes, we all knew who Jax was, but also he did do a little bit of a bamboozlement. And here I'm going to say, hot take, justice for Tom Sandoval. Justice for Tom Sandoval when it came to Jax and Brittany's relationship, because they had just went through a slew of horrible things. Jax cheating on Brittany, whatever. Jax, unfortunately, loses his dad. And all of a sudden has a come to Jesus and is a different person and is ready to be a man for Brittany and is ready to settle down and get married. And Tom Sandoval says, Jax, I just want to make sure that this is not a heightened emotional response to what you've been going through lately. I want to make sure that you are, ready to go into this marriage with the right intentions, the right heart for a long, healthy, happy relationship. And Jax was like, how dare you? I mean, anybody would react like Jax in that moment. But at the end of the day, was Tom Sandoval right? Hot take. I told you, slick back buns make me feel feisty. All right, last but certainly not least, it's not a final thoughts this week. It's an honorable mention. I've been toying with the idea of maybe calling this the honorable mention segment, because it's usually like something that still makes the headlines, but I'm just not as eager to talk about it right off the gate. And that is Taylor Ann Green leaving Southern Charm. So earlier this week, Taylor Ann Green announced on social media that she was saying so long farewell to Southern Charm. She wrote on Instagram, "Hi everyone. A bittersweet announcement. But after a lot of conversations and thought this past year, it is with a heavy but peaceful heart to announce that I will be stepping away from Southern Charm next year. These past 5 years with NBC and Bravo have been some of the most crazy but exciting times of my life. I will forever be thankful to the network, production teams, Bravo family, and all the fans for ultimately cheering me on to where I am today. A wild roller coaster, but an incredible one to say the least. I'm so excited to use this time to focus on my new company, Reset Athletic, and all the exciting things that my business partner and I have been working on to continue to bring our dream into reality." If you are trying to promote a new business venture, stay on that Bravo TV show for as long as possible. I think sometimes these former Bravo celebrities that walk away from their respective shows, let's say like on a show like Southern Charm, I think it's different for like a Real Housewives of Beverly Hills or an Orange County where they might have an acting background or something like that. But I feel like a lot of these people, they start these side businesses thinking that everybody will just flock to it because they've watched them on TV for 5 years. But honestly, truthfully, it's like an out of sight, out of mind type of thing. I mean, even when people are still on their shows, I feel like sometimes the side venture, the business ventures, like they're not as popular as they thought they would be. I'm thinking specifically of this one podcast. I'm not going to name it, but it's a housewife who recently announced a podcast. And like I went to this Instagram, the podcast Instagram, and it has like 2,000 followers, which for a housewife that's got like 500 plus, for their podcast to only have 2,000 followers. It's like sometimes I think these people just overestimate how much people actually care about them and what they're doing. I mean, I wish her nothing but the best, but I also think if you're starting a new company, it would be beneficial for you to stick around a little bit longer, hold it out a little bit longer. I'm not surprised at all. I don't think anybody is. First of all, her boyfriend Gaston was a figment of our imagination this season. Her whole storyline revolved around Sally and Gaston. And I'm like, who is Gaston? This person does not exist. Also, she really wanted to come into this season to patch things up with Olivia, who wasn't asked back. So she's like, I was kind of surprised that Olivia wasn't coming back. I really wanted to make things right. It's just like the only reason why I want to be here. So, I'm not surprised. I do wonder if people miss it. If people decide to walk away and they think that it's right, and then they miss like the publicity that comes along with it, the trips to New York, the Watch What Happens Live, the BravoCon where people are like yelling and screaming your name and all these things. I think it might be like a hard come down for some people to experience that, to go back to, I'm not saying that this is going to be Taylor's experience. I'm just using it as an example. To go from that lights, camera, action to like selling Reset Athletics, e-commerce from your laptop. You get what I'm saying? I mean, like I said, I wish her nothing but the best. I think people also miss the paycheck. I will say that much. So long, Taylor Ann Green. All right, you guys, there you have it for this week's episode of MPT. I am going to, schedule next week is going to be a little bit different. Some housekeeping. I should have done this at the beginning of the show, but my bun was too tight. I'm going to be traveling next Wednesday, which means I'm not going to have the ability to record my podcast. So I'm going to push it a day back. So it will be released on Friday. Okay, so you have a little MPT Friday to get you through your last day of work into the weekend. You can also hang out with us on the Patreon if you want more Bravo news, more Bachelor news. We talked all about Latia's bombshell podcast that she did earlier this week. Make sure you check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Morgan's Pop Talks. Leave a review, a little 5-star boop boop, a little love you like a sis, because I do. See you later.